Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today this is just a brief clip to talk about the Beatles Revolver Super Deluxe box set that I've now lived with a couple of weeks, and I still managed to keep the cellophane on and the hype sticker. Ooh. Yeah, and obviously there's a trillion reviews, and I did an unboxing and that was quite fun. And usually on my channel it's all drums and music and albums. I don't usually do unboxings, but a few people have checked it out, so thank you, and a few nice comments, so thank you for that. So I'm looking at it very much from a drummer's point of view. What am I getting out of it that's, I guess, one, as a fan of the album, because everyone knows it's my favourite Beatles album, and I was over the moon to know that they were doing this. So maybe a little bit as a fan, maybe, but mostly trying to keep it on the drum side, for Ringo drum files out there and fans and so on. So where do I start? Okay, so there's this here, all right, which was the outtakes and other versions and demos and so on, in a double album sleeve, which is great. With what was going to be the original Revolver cover. So yeah, I mean, just checking this out, it's always good to hear, the early mixes of Tomorrow Never Knows. Obviously, one of the most famous Beatle tunes for obvious reasons. If you don't know it, go and check it out. It's amazing. It's supposedly the first trance dance track that wasn't by an underground band, but a massive band, which were the Beatles at the time. And here in take one, Ringo's playing a different rhythm. He's not doing the gugung or one-handed on the top rack tom. He's playing like a buzz note, boom, gabba, boom, duh, boom, gada, dum, buh, and it's a lot slower. Check it out, drummers. It's kind of cool, and I'm glad it's not, mind you, if we only knew that version, we'd be talking about that and saying that was great. But the fact that they redid it and it was faster and they used that gugung, boom, da 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 gugung on the tom is much cooler. That's kind of much hipper. But it was nice to hear the early sort of versions of that song, and also got to get into My Life, which was a great funk Motown kind of tune. And a thing that from listening to these versions that I wish they had done, and a few other people have mentioned this as well, is there's some takes where the guitar is playing what the horns would later play. And it would have been nice if they'd have maybe kept both, so the guitar and the horns doing it. Maybe that was a bit too revolutionary for 1966, possibly. But that would have been really great to have heard that. And also hearing Ringo's drums much clearer, because there is a 1976 mix, I think, which is on an Apple label version of Revolver from Japan and possibly America that I'm trying to get hold of, where the drums are actually louder in the mix. But even on this collection of the mono and the stereo pressings, the drums were still quite far back, and I really want to hear them forward. So when you hear these early versions, the drums are really in your face and they're really driving it, rather than the other mixes where the tambourine seems to be driving it more. And when it comes to the tom fills, it just kind of disappears for a minute and comes back. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but we'll come to that in a minute. Other versions of Love You Too, the George Harrison song, I love that. I think it's great. We had the backing tracks for Paperback Writer. It's great to hear them doing that. It's great to have a few false starts and start again where they sort of speed up a little bit and they're talking about that and so on. Good to hear the actual proper speed version of Rain, the proper speed before they slowed it down. That's cool. A great version of Dr. Robert, number 7, which Ringo plays through the breakdown sections. And again, this is for Beatles fans really, who are real anoraks for the album, but it was quite nice to hear him driving through the well, you're feeling fine bit the second time through. He just plows straight through that. I don't know if it was a mistake or an experiment, but it was kind of like, whoa, he's sort of having it. And it's and generally the drums and all these outtakes and rehearsals, they're just so in your face. They've kept everything live. And listening to Giles Martin in interviews, he was saying that on this album you could tell by everything was recorded very hot. And I love that, but I'll come back to that in a second. Various versions of Only Bird Can Sing, Taxman, good. For No One, which is such an amazing track anyway. It's such a weird little song. sort of a Baroque type kind of vibe. Again, you can finally hear Ringo's drum part on it. He's almost playing like a drum part you'd hear like in a wind band or something, when you get a drum part for a wind band and it's kit, drum set. Yeah, he's playing sort of a nice sort of hi-hat and a little buzz rolls and stuff. That's really nice, and it's actually great to hear it in the mix properly. And I'll talk about that on one of the albums in a minute, because you can hear it there too. Because on some of the other copies I've got, it's just further buried in the mix. Yellow Submarine's great, with a version of John Lennon, a really sad version of it, with just him and the guitar, which is like a really early rough demo of it. And yeah, that's really cool. And also, she said one of my favourite tracks on the whole album. And hearing John's demo is good, but I've heard that before. But Take 15, backing track rehearsal, hearing Ringo play it, and it's really close to the original that we're going to use. But again, just slightly different drum fills, because he always admitted he could never play the same thing twice. So there's similar ideas, but slightly different. So hearing that was good. And again, hearing it raw in your face like that was fantastic. So some definite highlights on this. When it came to the mono mix, I did enjoy it very much. It's good. I was sort of led down here with my headphones on, checking it out, getting lost in the mix, lost in music. I mean, compared to my loud mix from 1966, which is over there, which I was going to get ready to show, but you've seen it before in the other clip. I don't want to say I prefer, but they're just different. I've got a kind of affinity with the 1966 loud mix, because it's what it is, and it's quite a rare record-ish. Would I play that one over this new mono version? I have done, but I'm not going to be one of those people that say, oh, it's better, it's worse. It's just a different mix. It's kind of cool. Now the single though, here of Paperback Writer, so this is like an EP. You get a mono version one side and stereo the other. The stereo mono was good. I actually thought the mono was going to pop a bit more, but actually it didn't. For me, my taste and my rig that I've got, as kind of basic as it is, the drums on the stereo, when I put the headphones on, I'm not going to lie, listening to Paperback Writer in Rain, there was a slight tears for me, because you could actually hear the bass drum part on Paperback Writer, not just in the doing good gang bits, but actually in the verses. Boom boom ga, boom boom ga. You could actually hear what he was playing and the syncopation in the bass drum, and I'll come to more of that in a minute. And I just remember staring out of the patio doors there, just staring into the garden, just thinking, this is amazing. It was just, I know the guitars growl a bit more. It's all a bit more gritty. So yeah, that EP was definitely worth every cent of this. And I think actually as a fan, it's well worth the money, to be honest, I think. But yeah, the drums on this, killer, absolutely fantastic. Really exciting mix. So yeah, the stereo one actually remix over the mono, which I was surprised about, because I thought it'd be the other way around. But that was great. So again, for Ringo fans, drums, superb. And I think the real surprise was how much I enjoyed the stereo mix. Because Giles Martin could separate all the instruments now, thanks to that Peter Jackson technology, you can actually hear the drums properly. You can actually hear what he's playing on his bass drum in Taxman. It just doesn't get lost under Paul's bass anymore, which is not a problem. It's cool. Of course, the marriage with a bass drum and bass, they're supposed to be tight. But to hear what he's playing, that syncopation in the bass drum, boom, da, boom, boom, ga, boom, da, boom, boom, ga. And then when he comes in on that, the sort of crash ride, and he plays it through the semi-chorus bits and then stops again, and there's the tambourine driving and then the cowbell, no hi-hat. It's kind of really, really cool. So that was a moment for me. My version of Eleanor Rigby, it plays okay, but there's a few crackles here and there, and I was wondering if I should send it back, but I'm not going to. It's kind of adds to the charm, maybe, when you think of £169 worth, does it? But it's a drumless track, so it's kind of cool. It doesn't get in the way of my Ringoisms, really. I'm Only Sleeping, great. A better mix, I think. Love You Too, fantastic. But she said, Yellow Submarine, obviously, yeah. She said, as I said, it's my favourite track. And on this stereo mix, I've got to say I was a bit disappointed. Because they've opened everything out and it's all got its own space, I actually, my ear prefers, and I've talked about this to a few other Beatles fans, I actually prefer the more compressed version where everything's growly and gnarly and snarling at you a bit more. This one's a bit too clean. And the sort of organ that comes in, it's great to hear it clearer, I guess, but I kind of like the fact that it was just there as a sparkle as part of the guitar line, but now it comes out in its own thing. So again, it's just different. But I prefer the older mixes, or even the 80s stereo mix that I've got, where everything's just a bit more, kind of makes it more exciting. But anyway, second side, Stellar Points, And Your Bird Can Sing. What they've done with the drums, as I say, they've pulled it away from the bass and everything else. And that snare drum is what they would call rude. It's a rude snare sound. That crack he's got on that snare is quite wide open. And I've checked the other mixes, and it's got a character and a personality, and just kind of sits where it should, obviously, and it has done for the last 40, 50, 60 years, whatever. But there's something about this new stereo mix which just gives it like, oh my God, that's growling at me, that snare. It's rude. It's great. So And Your Bird Can Sing, especially those guitars as well. He popped them right up in the mix. Brilliant. For No One, as I've just mentioned, the drums are now very subtle. They're coming through the mix. They've got their own space. They're not buried. And those little press rolls and hi-hat bits that he's playing. Very subtle drum part. Again, it's not the most complicated thing you'll ever hear, but musically it's just spot on and sits beautifully with the song. Dr. Robert, yeah, that pops nicely. Want to Tell You, great. That guitar, I hate singing these things, it's awful, right? But anyway, the guitar line sounds great. And snare, when it kicks in that boom, ka, boom, ka, and the the fills are just, they just come at you. They're just great. I wish we could have got that sort of more gnarly sound on She Said in a way. But anyway, Got to Get You Into My Life. Yeah, good. But again, the drums are too far down, Giles. They're too far down in the mix. We need to dig it to sing. Anyway, Tomorrow Never Knows. Brilliant. All good. So yeah, what can I say? And the book obviously is amazing. Flicking through that, it's all great. I can dig it. So all in all, am I happy? Yes. I know a lot of people are sort of, I really like the options. I just see it as different options. You've got these two mixes again. You've got your old ones if you want them. So say I've got an 80s pressing, or late 70s, early 80s pressing on Parlophone, which is fine. I like it. It's all I grew up listening to. It's all I knew. I've also got the loud mix as well, which I got when I was touring a few years ago. And that's brilliant. So that gives me an A and a B. And then, with all these extra options they've given us with the stereo mixes and, the outtakes and bits and bobs, we're spoilt for choice. So as I say, as a fan, I'm very happy, but as a Ringo fan, being able to hear those drum parts and hear the bass drum and the toms and the air around it, because the mics are just open in those rehearsals and stuff, it just sounds great. And you can really hear how hard they play. And I've told a few of my friends who are like, oh, the Beatles, yeah. And I've said, well, listen to some of these mixes when they're playing. You can hear how loud they're playing. And also in the book, you can see the size of the amplifiers they're using. They're like Shea Stadium amplifiers, and they're not too shy of saying, let's go up in the red, come on, lads. And all the guys in their lab coats that, in their pens, at Abbey Road were like, hello chaps, be careful there, they were like, nah, come on, it's going to be great. Boom, boom, boom. So if you're thinking of getting it and you're a Beatles fan and Ringo fan, then I would say get it. It's brilliant. I've lived with it, as I say, for a couple of weeks now, maybe longer than that, and I'm loving it. I think it's superb. And just before I come on, actually, I was playing the She Said outtakes and backing tracks from this, and it's just like, it just kind of pepped me up to want to come on and talk about it. So as a Ringo fan, I'm really happy. You're going to hear things you've never heard before, and as I say, the air around the drums, and it just, especially through headphones, it just really is a good experience. And as a Beatle fan, I'm just happy. It's my favourite Beatle album, so it's a thumbs up all round. So if you haven't got it and you're thinking about getting it or getting it on the Christmas list, do so. You will not be disappointed. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Take care. Have a great day. Enjoy your music. Enjoy your drumming. And have a wonderful, wonderful time. And I'll speak to you soon.